Serial killers are very much a part of our culture and have been since the infamous Jack the Ripper roamed and terrorised the streets of Whitechapel at the dawn of the 1900s. They are fascinating creatures who have been romanticised in film, sung about in songs, and assisted in the gory action in video games. But there are some, just as frightening as the rest, who, for whatever reason, slip under the radar of our media outlets. One such killer is Trevor Hardy, and he is who we will be covering in today's video. I am JJ, and this is The Beast of Manchester, the forgotten serial killer. Trevor Joseph Hardy was born on the 11th of June 1945 in Manchester, England. Trevor, whose strange version of fame would earn him the moniker the Beast of Manchester, is believed to have had 3 victims between December of 1974 and March of 1976. 3 teenage girls, Janet Leslie Stewart, Sharon Mosoff, and Wanda Scala. Trevor's beginnings in this chosen life started when he was jailed for wounding a man with a pickaxe in 1972 when he was 31. He was told by the judge that he was a menace to society, but they were not aware of just how menacing Hardy would become, and after just a matter of weeks of leaving White's Albany jail, he would commit his first murder. While serving his time in prison, Trevor's anger was brewing due to the fact his 14-year-old girlfriend, Beverly Driver, had written to him, feeling pity for him, to inform him that she had found a boy of her own age, Trevor's former friend, Stanley O'Brien. Due to this betrayal, Trevor daydreamed of ending the lives of both Stanley and Beverly, but upon his release he returned to his parents' home, only to be told that O'Brien had died. He soon went to Beverly's home and hurled an axe through her window. He didn't see Beverly, but he instead saw an unsuspecting Janet Stewart, 15, who was walking to meet her boyfriend. He proceeded to stab her in the throat and then buried her in a nearby clay pit. Some weeks later, he frequently visited the burial site to cut up Janet's body, burying the parts in various other places, and tossed her head into a lake. She was reported as missing, but it would be 21 months before they learned of her fate through Hardy's confessions. To add to the already gruesome acts Hardy had committed, he also removed her ring and later gave it to another girl as a token of love. His next victim would be 18-year-old part-time barmaid Wanda Scala in July of 1975. The murder took place just 400 yards from her home in Moston. The beast brutally battered her with a brick, then strangled her with her own tights after ripping her clothes off of her. Before burying her on a construction site, he savagely bit off one of her nipples. Trevor also made a point of keeping her blood-drenched clothes and her handbag as his trophies, a very common trait amongst serial killers. Next on Hardy's kill list would be Sharon Mosoff, 17, who was walking home from a party. She witnessed Hardy attempting to break into a shopping centre. Hardy strangled her, stripped her naked, and after biting off one of her nipples, just as he had done to Wanda, he threw her into a canal 300 yards from her home in Failsworth. Hardy feared being traced through his teeth marks, so he proceeded to strip, jumped into the freezing water with a metal rivet and scratched Sharon's mutilated breast in an attempt to cover up the teeth marks. Her body was discovered the following morning in the Rochdale Canal by a nearby dairy worker. After being picked up for questioning about the murder, and whilst in custody, Hardy used a nail file on his teeth to avoid being linked to the killings. He was soon released after being given a false alibi by his mistress, Sheila Farrow. But it wouldn't be long before the police were on his trail again when he attacked a 21-year-old girl called Christian Campbell, the girl who escaped his murderous rampage. Police caught up with Trevor after following Sheila Farrow and found him at a house in Stockport. He finally wrote a confession that covered 40 pages. After his arrest, he also confessed to the murder of Janet Leslie Stewart, He escorted police to the lake where he had thrown her head, and then onto a shallow grave which contained some of her skeleton. Whilst in the dock, he pleaded guilty to manslaughter on the grounds of diminished responsibility, but the jury didn't follow suit and rejected his claim, and he was convicted of murder. A psychiatrist had earlier stated that Trevor Hardy was a hopelessly evil, dangerous man who would absolutely kill again. Mr. Justice Caulfield informed Hardy, "This area is a happy place, but it will be a happier place without you. You have been convicted of the horrible murders of 3 young girls, and you will go to prison for life." He was given 3 life sentences. It was at this point people in the public gallery began screaming obscenities at Hardy, making threats towards him. After he was thrown inside, he wrote a letter and sent it to the Mossoff family, blaming his vicious actions on his upbringing, namely his mother. During Trevor Hardy's murderous rampage, the Yorkshire Ripper Peter Sutcliffe was beginning his own killing spree, and there were similarities between the two. It was partly due to this that led to Hardy's own murders being forgotten. For some years it was believed that Hardy may have killed more than 3 times. Dorothy Leyden was 17 when she was beaten, raped and murdered in 1971. Her body had been dumped behind a pub in Collyhurst. It may well have been the beginning of Trevor Hardy's reign of terror, but it was said in 2008 that forensic evidence stated otherwise. Many years later, in 2012, Trevor Hardy collapsed in his cell after suffering a heart attack. He died 2 days later on the 25th of September, aged 67. Father of Sharon Mossoff said, upon hearing of Hardy's death, "Me and my family think this is the best thing that has ever happened to us. It's like winning the lottery. We've had a big party to celebrate his death. We feel as though a burden has been lifted from our shoulders, knowing that he cannot come out and do anything to anybody else. We knew he was inside, but you cannot forget something like that. It preys on your mind. What he did was cold-blooded murder. He was an animal." And there you have it, a brief insight into the chaos caused by the Beast of Manchester. It's shocking to think that a man capable of such acts can be forgotten about and brushed under the carpet by the general public, but I guess it's my job to remind you. For now, however, JJ out.